I'm Ben Ryman, and this is Behavior Speak. And so how would you describe the Somali Behaviour Analysis Association's mission in your own words?
So our mission is one thing, and one thing that we really try to emphasize is that to promote evidence-based interventions, research, and education. That's really our mission, is to be able to propagate evidence-based interventions within behavior analysis, because a lot of times some of our community can be susceptible to interventions that are not evidence-based. So we want to be a place for our, Somali families, individuals, to be able to understand this is what works, right? This is what research says works for whatever the condition, such as mental health needs, developmental disorders, or behavioral challenges. ABA can help, not other interventions that might be out there. So I think that was our mission first and foremost.
So I think one of the most overlooked strengths, which has been mentioned here before, would be that Somali families have a lot of resilience. And coupled with the fact they have a strong belief that everything happens for a reason, and then that being rooted from their faith as well, being Islam, belief can act as a powerful coping mechanism or coping strategy. So in a sense, if that supports their emotional regulation or persistence, that these things can help them with the difficult circumstances that they may face with regards to, let's say, diagnosis of autism, or even just navigating support. And also understanding that some of them may have, in the diaspora, have gone through, let's say, living through the civil war, the displacement and migration, so that could lead to their resilience as well. These experiences then share that adaptability, active caregiving, gain from, I would say, definitely the culture as well, the Somali culture, strong problem-solving skills as well.
In this episode of Behavior Speak, I'm joined by the founding members of the Somali Behaviour Analysis Association, Rahma Farah, Ikram Buralle, Suaad Jama, and Nasteya Mahamoud, leaders working to grow behavior analysis and autism support within Somali communities, both locally and across the diaspora. Together, they're on a mission to increase awareness of autism, reduce stigma, and build access to culturally responsive ABA services in Somalia, where formal systems of diagnosis and support are still extremely limited. In our conversation, we talk about what it actually looks like to introduce behavior analysis in a context where many families have never heard of autism, where stigma can shape whether children are hidden or supported, and where trained professionals are scarce. We also explore the role of the diaspora in driving change, the importance of culturally grounded care, and the challenges of building not just services, but an entire professional community from the ground up. This is a powerful conversation about equity, representation, and what it means to expand behavior analysis globally in a way that is led by the communities it's meant to serve. Let's get into it. All right, welcome everybody to Behavior Speak.
Hi.
Before we get started, I just want to acknowledge I am producing this podcast on the territories of the Kalam and Clayus, Homoko, Comox, and Sechelt First Nations. As always, I am grateful to be here. I'm grateful to learn from each of you about your lived experiences, your professional roles, and really stoked to learn about the Somali Behaviour Analysis Association. So let's start with some introductions. Maybe everyone could just tell us who you are and what your role is with SBAA. And then a bit of what kind of got you into behavior analysis.
Perfect. I think I'll go first then. I want to first say thank you, Ben, for having SBAA on the podcast. We are really grateful. I will start off by saying I'm one of the co-founders with Rahma. We co-founded SBAA together. Other than that, the other title that I have is head of, it's a really long title, so head of communication, finance, and also media as well. And I help support in that, and operations as well. So that's kind of what I do. Because we're a small organization, a lot of us have different hats, but hopefully as we plan to grow, we can kind of divide some of those responsibilities.
Right on. And Ikram, how'd you kind of find behavior analysis? What got you into the field?
Great question. So when I started at UTSC, the University of Toronto Scarborough, I always worked at the accessibility services. So I was always supporting neurodivergent students or students with physical disabilities. And as you know, I did an undergrad in public health and psychology. And in my fourth year, I was like, okay, what am I going to do? I need a job, right? Am I either going to go continue school or am I going to go into the job market. And all I did was Google a degree in, what can I do with students with disabilities? And honestly, a George Brown program, which is a college in Toronto, came up with behavior analysis, and that was the BACB coursework. And I thought, oh, great, I can do a year in college, so I don't have to go into the job market right away. And also I get to get work placement, because at that time they were offering that. So I thought, great, let me do that. And that's literally how I stumbled upon behavior analysis. I've never heard of it before, not even when I was doing psychology classes in undergrad. So honestly, it was just luck and Google.
Amazing. Yeah. And George Brown is a great program. I'm interviewing Don Togade later this year. So
okay.
Yeah. It's a great spot. Okay. Who's next?
Hi, everyone. So I'm Rahma. Thank you, Ben, for having me again. It's a pleasure to be on your platform. I am a boy mom, dual certified behavior and sleep consultant. I have worked in the ABA field for just under a decade, mainly supporting the neurodivergent communities from early year settings to young adulthood across home programs, clinics, and schools. I am the founder and director of Prospering Minds Consultancy, where I support families with behavior and sleep challenges, delivering training to professionals, caregivers, and future IBTs, international behavior therapists, some based in the UAE. I am also looking to collaborate closely with an occupational therapist to create a combined ABA and OT resources for parents and school staff. I am also the co-founder of Somali Behaviour Analysis Association, alongside with Ikram. My particular role is to lead on partnerships, strategy, and community outreach.
That's great. Okay. And who's next? Yeah.
I'm Nasteya. I'm a trainee behavior analyst. I've just done my master's about a year and a half ago in ABA. I have a background in law, so my first higher education degree was law. I'll speak about how I stumbled on that later. I am the people coordinator for the SBAA, but like I said, we're wearing a lot of hats. So I'm also the social media manager at the moment as well. So yeah, that's that.
Amazing. And Suaad.
Hi. So my name is Suaad Jama, and I am the neurodiversity advisor for SBAA. So my background is I actually study and work as an architectural designer and an independent researcher. And my creative work focuses on how culture and the home environments shape neurodivergent experiences within the Somali community. And I'd say that as somebody who was diagnosed in my mid-30s as being on the spectrum.
Do you have a certification with the International Behavior Analysis Organization, the Qualified Applied Behavior Analysis Credentialing Board, the Behavior Analyst Certification Board, or are certified through your region's Behavior Analyst Credentialing Board? You can earn continuing education units for this episode by going to www.behaviorspeak.com and clicking on CEUs. The first secret word is dance. Great. Awesome. Maybe Rahma, Ikram, maybe you could tell us a little bit about sort of what led you to form the SBA in the first place? What was the sort of the moment that said, we got to do this?
Yeah, sure. So, do you want to start by how we met initially and then?
Yeah, so I was on LinkedIn, and as I was just browsing my feed, and then Rahma's post came up like a year ago or so that she graduated and got her graduated and then passed the BCBA exam. And I was like, great, another Somali sister. I haven't really met a lot of Somali BCBAs. I only knew of one from Toronto, but Rahma was based internationally in London. So I just, honestly, what I did, I just commented and I said, congratulations. And then from there, Rahma replied, and then, our conversations went into the DM, and then we just had started to talk about kind of our goals. And then from there, the idea just came, and we were like, why not? I think it's something that we need. And again, we were surprised to find other Somali BCBAs. So we thought, we exist. Maybe it's just that we don't have a platform for all of us to come together and support us. So that's how it basically started, just from a LinkedIn post and commenting on LinkedIn.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think from that LinkedIn post and the direct messages, we led to I think, a virtual conversation. So we met online somewhere, we had a chat over a cup of tea. That's how the idea grew, I think. So we talked about just serving the Somali community as well, and that representation and lack of representation. And where there are a few Somali BCBAs, I definitely want to say a handful across internationally. So I think that's what led us, and that's motivated us, and said, why don't we create a platform? We let that sit, that planted the seeds for a bit. And I think December 2024, we protected the name under a domain. So we got the domain for Somali Behaviour Analysis Association. And I think February 2025, we launched February. It, right? So we start launching an Instagram.
Our Instagram.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think what also inspired us as well was similar organizations like the Black Behavior Analysts Association. So I felt like it was something that we can do, right? It's similar organizations existed, but not something unique for us as Somali practitioners. And so that's why, really are grateful for their work, because they definitely laid the foundation for us to be able to start an organization like this.
Yeah.
Right on. So how would you describe the Somali Behaviour Analysis Association's mission in your own words?
So our mission is one thing, and one thing that we really, really try to emphasize is that to promote evidence-based interventions, research, and education. That's really our mission, is to be able to propagate evidence-based interventions within behavior analysis, because a lot of times some of our community can be susceptible to interventions that are not evidence-based. So we want to be a place for our, Somali families, individuals, to be able to understand, like, this is what works, right? This is what research says works for, whatever the conditions, such as mental health needs, developmental disorders, or behavioral challenges. ABA can help, and not other interventions that might be out there. So I think that was our mission, first and foremost.
Yeah, right on. And so for listeners who may be less familiar or only have sort of tidbits of news to kind of go on, could you share a bit about Somalia, maybe starting with where it is, and then languages, cultural diversity, family structures, those sorts of things?
So Somalia is in the Horn of Africa. It is an old nation. Very nomadic people, deeply entrepreneurial, poetic. We've been known as the nation of poets, and this has been mentioned by I don't know whether you guys know of the great Canadian novelist Margaret Lawrence. She's mentioned that they are really Somali in her research into Somali literature. We truly are very poetic people who love storytelling and family. And Somalia's, I think, recent history of conflict and displacement created a huge global Somali diaspora. But for some reason, the connection between the people at home and the diaspora hasn't changed. It's only become even stronger. And I think a really clear example of that is the remittance. It makes up around almost a quarter of Somalia's economy. So helping families, staying connected, that's something that's really important to Somalis. Very welcoming, very entrepreneurial, very warm people, and extremely funny, hilarious, a hilarious community.
And what do people maybe often misunderstand about Somali culture?
What would you say, Ikram?
I think one thing is that maybe they don't acknowledge our resiliency. Like Rahma said, like, our country has been at war and displacement for a very long time, but we're still here, right? Our country's still standing, and our global the diaspora is also very strong and connected with the community. So I think that's one thing, our resiliency. I think also another one is that we are we stand together. We are not people that are divided. We do support our, neighbors, our family members, cousins, people that we know. So I think maybe that's something that is overlooked.
And then what are the languages spoken in Somalia?
Mainly Somali. So the language of instruction is Somali, but we have, as some people may know, Somalia was colonized by three nations, so Britain, Italy, and France. So there's a little bit of Italian, forgetto, formaggio, a little bit of Italian. Also in the Djibouti region, which is now obviously a an independent nation. They speak French. But across Somalia, we mainly speak Somali. English is taught and Arabic is taught due to the shared religion. But Somali is the main language.
And talk a bit about that, sort of the religious kind of practices in Somalia. What are the main ones, and what's that all look like?
So interestingly enough, there's the main religion in Somalia is actually is Islam. So it's one thing. The interesting thing about Somalia is we are one of the very few nations, same language, same ethnic background, pretty much same religion, almost 99%, according to the latest stats, almost 99%. So definitely above 90% now. So the main religion that's practiced in the country is Islam.
And so how big is Somalia, and how many people are there?
We're about 20 million in Somalia now, right?
Yeah, and we have the longest coastline too, so that's a fun fact as well. Yeah.
And if we were to compare it to, say, the UK or maybe a province in Canada or something like that, like, I mean, Canadian provinces aren't the greatest thing to compare it to because they're so huge, but how big would you say Somalia is?
Significantly larger than the UK. I'd say, gosh, the total area, I don't have it from at the top of my head, but around 2 times larger in land than the United Kingdom, which is where I live. I'm not sure about Canada. So yeah, it's a huge land, very diverse as well.
And are those sort of 20 million people, are they mostly in sort of 1 or 2 major cities, or you talked about them being nomadic people, so are there people all over? What's that kind of look like?
Spread across the entire country. And the population's growing as well. Since for the last almost 30, 40 years, people have been moving from that nomadic life, which can be said for many countries, to the cities. And what's usually been happening is there are a few family members that support those members that are moving in from that nomadic life, bringing them through school, bringing them through education. So yeah, a lot of people have moved from that nomadic lifestyle to moving into the cities. They're inhabiting the cities a lot more now. But yes, everywhere you go, you'll find people across the entire country, from the north all the way down to the deep south.
I think, sorry, just to add one more thing, which is I think is important, about like 70 to 80% of the population is under 35 years old. So it's a very young population as well. So that's something also I think that adds to some of the dynamics within the country.
And is that sort of related to the conflict, or what's the reasoning for that? That's quite a huge difference.
I think it definitely it is related to the conflict as well. Could be, but I don't want to misspeak. I don't know if Nasteya, if you have other information about that, but I definitely think obviously the civil war that has extended for a period of time can obviously contributes to that young population.
It's also the fact that Somalia is it's a strategic location. Many people who are interested in African history and global South history, the global South history, know that Somalia was the first African nation to be air raided. So they have fought colonialism very hard. They are a very resilient people, and it was really hard to divide us. But from clan-based division to economic hardship, that is, but politics is very complex. I don't want to get into politics now. Foreign intervention, geopolitical interests. Somalia is in the middle of all of that. And I do believe that in the next, 30 to 40 years, things will look very different. And it's quite interesting. Like, the reason why I joined the SBAA is my mum always used to say, she used to say this to us, and I know that a lot of Somalis who were growing up have heard this. You have a country to go back to, you have a nation to build, and she always used to say, it's almost like you're going to plant a tree that you will probably not sit under. So this is what the SBAA is also doing. In terms of the work that we want to do, especially back home, I think the country is moving towards a much better direction, and in the next 30 to 40 years, we will definitely look like a very different country. I mean, it's already looking very different. If you've been to Mogadishu, in Hamar, the capital, very different in terms of trade. The theatres are back, which is it's central to Somali culture. Things are changing rapidly. I mean, across Africa. So it's moving in a positive direction.
That's great. Let's kind of move into with getting a bit of context around Somalia, I'd like to talk a little more specifically about sort of disability and autism and that sort of thing. How is autism and neurodivergence commonly understood or talked about within Somali communities?
I think I'll try answering that. So autism and neurodivergence is still quite new. When I mean new is I'm talking about clinical language within the Somali community. However, the concept itself is not new, and culturally we already have words to describe the condition. So the word that we use is mangar, and that translates to unique mind, and that would identify someone who thinks or processes life differently, and you can tell how you can just basically tell that they're a little bit different from the crowd. And that difference is understood mainly through their behavior rather than actual clinical diagnosis. So a child can be very quiet, or they can be very active, or they could be experiencing speech delay, developing speech differently. So right now, there is a lot of stigma attached to autism, and some people who are on the spectrum, they have a fear of labels, or a lack of actually accessing the support that they need. And where I'm from in the UK, there might be so their parents would also be not just kind of not kind of accessing the proper care, but also having the language to understand. So it's not just the issue of access and being diagnosed properly. It's also the Somali language information is not available to these parents. At the same time, something positive is there is a growing awareness, particularly among younger parents and mothers and in the diaspora communities. So the different Somali diaspora communities, because there's a large population in the UK, countries like Sweden, Canada, the US. So I would say, importantly, I think for us, it's not really the lack of care, it's often the lack of culturally relevant explanation of what the child is experiencing, and the parents themselves having trusted pathways of getting right support.
You know, something that kind of stuck with me earlier is that idea of the word, the mangar, with the idea of unique thinking. This is something that's come up in my conversations with folks from a lot of different countries, especially, I think you mentioned before, Somali's such an old nation, and some of these really old cultures. I think about a lot of the indigenous folks in North America that I've spoken to when we talk about autism, and in Australia and other countries, and some countries in Africa. When speaking to folks in Nigeria and Ghana, I heard some similar stories where they have these terms that have been around for generations and generations and centuries. And so in some of those other communities, prior to the Western influence and the deficit discourse that kind of came with that, a lot of these folks were uplifted in community. And I remember, I think it was either Nigeria or Ghana. It was that early episode 90 or 91, where they were considered sort of almost spiritual beings, uplifted in that way. I know in some of the First Nations, they had a term for, they didn't have a word for autism. They had this term that meant he who thinks differently. And again, uplifted, another spiritual being, closer to the gods, closer to Creator. Is that a similar kind of idea in Somalia, that folks that prior to sort of colonization and all of this negative pathological way of looking at things, that autistic folks were uplifted and looked in that way, and neurodiversity in general?
I think what you were saying also reminds me of the First Nations in America. I can't remember the exact word, but they would describe somebody who might have been on the spectrum as a person walking backwards through life. So I think for us, it's very similar. It's very similar to what how the First Nation describe people. So with us, we would call somebody unique-minded, somebody who's just they're cut basically from a different cloth. They're very different to the crowd. But at the same time, I think what we're lacking, or what we didn't have the opportunity so far, is to really develop clinical language and the infrastructure needed to support, especially the children, to support, children and adults living with autism and other neurodiversity. So I think what's happening now, what's unfolding now, is something ideally that could have happened before. But given the conflict, what's been happening in Somalia in the last 4 decades, and even prior to that, I think Nasteya, when she was explaining Somali history, what Somalia went through is actually very unique as well, if we're talking about being unique-minded. So we actually had one of the longest anti-colonial resistance of all nations globally. And we basically were up against all of our neighbors and the European imperial powers as well. And just to kind of echo what Nasteya said, we were bombed by the British. So, we're going from, and that happened in the turn of the 20th century. But that's not the first time that we were attacked by the Europeans. So the earliest documented conflict was the Portuguese, going back about 500 years. So you're looking at about 400 years, 400 to 500 years of fighting European imperialism. And then we had to, when we finally got independence, there was issues with the UN as well. There was always at the very beginning of the concept of the Somali nation building, there was always interference. So it's not because we weren't interested in looking into our populations and looking into how we can support Somali children. There was always a very interfering and very intrusive political background that unfortunately I don't know, I'm trying to find the right words to describe, but there's really no words. What happened politically in Somalia had kind of eviscerated the Somali psyche and the Somali identity. And we young educated people in the diaspora, we know that, we're really trying to put all of those fragments back together.
I'd just like to add that under the BACB government between 1969, say, to 1991, Somalia did have a public health and education infrastructure, especially like urban centers like Qadisha, Hargeisa, Berbera. Maybe autism wasn't recognized or diagnosed, but there was a growing specialized knowledge and services. But again, that was disrupted by the war. And what's quite interesting is that the media and the government and health worked quite closely, in the sense that if there was, for instance, FGM is not something that Somalis have suddenly become opposed to because the West have told us that this is something that's terrible. There were campaigns run by Somali female doctors, public ones, where they would, bring the people together. They would speak to, the poets who used to write the plays and instruct them to speak about the dangers and let the people know about the dangers of FGM. But again, it's that education and that development was disrupted. So as Europe was developing its psychology departments, and they were growing in many areas, the post-colonialism, the effect has continued to disrupt everything about the country.
And FGM, what's that?
Female genital mutilation. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
That gives some context. So yeah.
Sorry.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So in terms of we've kind of talked a bit about autism understanding, some of the stigma, some of those pieces. What are some of the strengths you see in Somali families that are often overlooked by mainstream systems?
Yeah, so I think one of the most overlooked strengths, which has been mentioned here before, would be that Somali families have a lot of resilience. And coupled with the fact they have a strong belief that everything happens for a reason, and then that being rooted from their faith as well, being Islam. So if you look at it from the behavioral lens, belief can act as a powerful coping mechanism or coping strategy. So in a sense, if that supports their emotional regulation or persistence, so these things can help them with the difficult circumstances that they may face with regards to, let's say, diagnosis of autism or even just navigating support. So this is something that I found across some of the families that I've worked with. And also understanding that some of them may have, in the diaspora, have gone through, let's say, living through the civil war, the displacement and migration, so that could lead to their resilience as well. These experiences then share that adaptability, collective caregiving, again from, I would say, definitely the culture as well, the Somali culture, strong problem-solving skills as well.
Yeah, can I add to that as well? So in the Somali, one of the things that can really be celebrated in the Somali community is that we do have deep kinship and caregiving networks within the community, and responsibility is shared, it's not individualized, and we also have strong cultural knowledge that that families use amongst themselves so they can understand their children deeply, even without having the clinical language to address children on the spectrum. Another thing that really helps the Somali community as well is that they've adapted, considering where we come from and the places that we ended up in, you know, from Canada to South Africa to Copenhagen. You know, it's a global network that we have. So the community was really shaped by the fact that we can adapt and we do have resilience. You know, in the face of forced migration and the survival following the Somali civil war. So very similar to what Rahma was saying, I think is our strong sense of dignity and the protection that we provide for each other, and also I would say advocacy for our children, even though there are mothers and fathers who might be struggling with the language of their new host country, but they, you know, that strong sense of dignity is how they still try to advocate for their children.
One thing I'd like to add as well that I find I think inspirational as well is that Somalis have a belief that, you know, and I think this is obviously rooted from Islam as well, that if you have a child with special needs, that's like, you know, it's a gift or an amana, which means trust from Allah. You know, you've been given entrusted. So it's like seen as a positive thing that you were chosen to be that parent for that child with special needs. Right. So I think it's also in a beautiful way to think about that as well, which I think I really do appreciate within our community. Again, it's not unique to us. I think it's more of like an Islamic understanding, but something also as well, a strength of ours, the way that we view a child, for example, with special needs.
Yeah, and can I also add, unfortunately, you know, we have to really emphasize the patience and the care that we have as a collective. And unfortunately, in the media, that's not what's showcased. But it is one of our strongest areas as a people, I would say, the care and the dignity that we have for each other.
And so how are some of the ways the SBAA is aiming to support Somali families, practitioners, and community members? What are some of the ideas you have in mind?
So first off, to support families, as I mentioned earlier, our mission is to promote evidence-based strategies, right? So this year, our theme for, you know, across all of our social media and, you know, what we're really pushing is all about evidence-based. So really promoting that within our community. So not only within behavior analysis, but occupational therapy, speech and language therapy, if there's psychiatry as well. So just really promoting evidence-based strategies. And then also being that, translating, for example, providing translation, for example, for behavior analytic material that parents might come across. Because as we've seen, a growing number of Somali families and their loved ones are accessing ABA services. So it's important that we are there to be able to support them through that journey, and then also to guide them to evidence-based strategies. In terms of practitioners, obviously, as Rahma and I mentioned, there's not a lot of us here. So we want to make sure that we build that community for practitioners, one, to disseminate ABA. I think it's important that we get more Somali faces within behavior analysis, right? Why is it important? It grows our numbers. I think it also helps to dictate research as well, which I think is really important. And also, provide supervision, for example. I think to be able to provide maybe the supervision that might be appropriate for Somali practitioners. So I think those are kind of one of our, our goals for SBAA.
And tell me a little bit about that in terms of numbers. So how many members do you have? How many folks are behavior analysts, frontline staff, that sort of thing?
So currently we don't have a membership structure as yet. It's definitely something that we are working towards. I think right now our goal is for a dissemination first, for people to understand the science within our community. And then hopefully we will be starting to create a membership program for other Somali, those that are interested as students, for example, to join, or actual practitioners as well.
Not having a membership, just even based on your connections alone. I mean, one person in Toronto. What's sort of your idea right now, or at least since you've started the SBA and heard from folks, do you have an idea of how many folks there are that you have at least made contact with?
So I would say in terms of if we're thinking about gender, for example, majority of the practitioners that I've come across are majority female. We have met one male who is currently doing his coursework for BCBA. He's based in the United States. Okay. So that was the only other, and another male as well. So I know 3 males. Honestly, 3 males. And I know about maybe, I would say, a handful of other certified BCBAs or BCABAs. I don't know if the other girls know others, but there's a handful. I think it would be interesting to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I literally only know 3.
Okay.
Wow. Okay.
Me, Rahma, and who else?
and the girl from Canada who lives in the UK.
Okay.
Oh, and there's another one as well. Her name is Hanan as well. Shout her out. She's also another. She's been a BCBA longer than me, so she's also another one. So we have 4 that we can name.
Yeah, I definitely want to agree with Ikram. Definitely, I think the 3 male Somali BCBA, or maybe trainee BCBA, those are the ones that I do know of as well. But with the female, quite a few actually responded quite positively to SBAA, some via email or DMs who've said they're interested and they're happy to support. So yeah, quite a few. Handful.
And this is all before our very first event, which we are going to have quite soon.
Yes.
So I'm sure grow once we launch and we get to know the community.
Yeah. And we'll come to that in a second. I'm curious. I'm guessing most of these folks are kind of part of the diaspora. Are you aware of anybody in Somalia itself doing this work? The second secret word is partnership.
So I know of one girl. She's in Djibouti. So she is Somali ethnically, but not from Somalia. And she's doing work there. So we are, we'll talk about it later too, but we have some exciting things coming up where we're able to showcase her work. But she's doing work there in Djibouti.
Amazing. Well, why don't we get right into it? Tell me a little bit about sort of some of the things you have coming up and some of the events and things planned.
Okay. Rahma, Nasteya, do you want to maybe talk about the event that's happening in April?
We have an event coming up where I'll bringing it's for parents, where we'll sort of introduce ourselves and bring other professionals together. So occupational therapists, speech and language therapists, and also was it a psychiatrist, Rahma?
Yes.
You've invited?
Yes.
Yes. So psychiatrist as well, a teacher, and also parents with lived experiences. We are going to be hosted by a space that's central to the Somali community. It's going to be happening in Culture House, and we are going to be collaborating with different individuals within the mental health field, and that's really exciting. Also, parents with lived experiences, and the idea is to sort of let parents know who we are, and the importance of collaboration. I know that within the field of ABA, there's, or not just generally as humans, we tend to like want to fit things into boxes. It's either or this intervention, this latest intervention, therefore the other intervention goes out of the window. And that's not what we're about. We're about collaborating. We know that the best programs are always the ones where the occupational therapist is on board, the speech and language therapist is on board, and the BCBA and the ABA therapist, and everyone's working in harmony. And so that's the goal of the event, is to show that collaborative effort is the way forward, and to model that to the parents essentially. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I think another event that hopefully we'll be having will be in Dubai, because I'm the only one in Dubai. The other three ladies are based in London as well, so I won't be, unfortunately, be able to attend that in person. But hopefully we're planning either an event in Dubai or maybe, I'm not sure yet, but in Somalia as well. So let's see. Hopefully, yeah. So let's stay tuned, guys.
It's fantastic. Thinking about kind of neurodiversity affirming practice and culturally responsive care, and trying to bring evidence-based practices to people. First question I have is and I think it's great. But what brought you and Suaad together kind of so early in the process? I think it's great to have someone with a role like hers early in development. Often organizations might not go to that till later. How did you all connect? And tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think it was since we launched SBAA on Instagram, I believe. Yeah, more on Instagram. And Suaad had reached out to one of us, either myself or Ikram, and just both Nasteya and Suaad just showing an interest, really. I think it started off showing interest, incredible support, which we appreciate, and from their conversations, and then I believe I reached out to them and said, I think it'd be a great fit. What do you think? Would that be interesting to you?
Yeah, so how I came across SBAA was through Instagram. So there you go. There's merits to being on social media. So yeah, my background is architectural design and cultural heritage studies, and I was diagnosed with autism at the age of 35. And through my assessment, I gave them consent to look into my school records. So there were signs that I might be on the spectrum, but I did not. There was no referral. There was no action on it. And I'm not the first or last person to experience something like that. But that made me very angry. And I think because I came to the UK as a child refugee in the mid-90s, and within the first 2 years of me being in the British school system, there were already signs that I might have been showing signs of autism, but that was not picked up on because I was an intelligent child. I learned English as my third language by the age of 7, and the fact that I was intelligent and highly functioning, I was kind of like left on my own, So at the age of 35, I had to find out that I am autistic, and what that kind of does, it kind of like makes you look at everything from a different lens.
Sure.
But I won't go too much into how it kind of like reshaped my identity. But I would say it made me realize that I need to find Somali-led spaces. So that's how, and by that I mean I didn't want to be a passive recipient of support. I wanted to be in a space where it was Somali-led intervention, and because I was trying to like actively seek understanding, and I think I I think I definitely found that within this space. So how I got in touch with SBA was through Instagram, and I think they had like a meeting online. I joined and I shared my story, and I kept in touch with the founders, so both Ikram and Rahma. And then from that, they kindly invited me to be a neurodiversity advisor and share my life experiences, and also and share my views as well, because I'm trying to change or turn that there's lemons into lemonade, the things that I've kind of experienced in my life,
Yeah.
and I am somebody who is quite self-determined, and even then I've experienced a lot of barriers. So as a Somali woman, we've hit more, there's layers to the things that we kind of experience in everyday life as well, not just in the healthcare field, and that can honestly be addressed through what's happening at SBAA, which I think could also be described as a Somali-led intervention to tackling what the community is facing.
Yeah. And I think, Ben, as you mentioned, this role being quite unique, and we're honestly really grateful to have Suaad and Nasteya here. Also for Suaad's particular role to keep us in line of neurodiverse friendly, whether it's the material that we're offering or even the families that we're approaching. It's really good to hear from her. Yeah.
Suaad, I appreciate your vulnerability here and sharing some of those experiences. I get wanting to be part of Somali-led spaces. I'm curious, have you had any contact with or know of any Somali-led spaces for neurodivergent folks, or?
No, I think SBAA are pioneers in that. I honestly do. The fact that we haven't launched yet, the work that's already been, I definitely think they're paving the way. I feel like they've already done the hard work of actually, being qualified to, well, first of all, they're actually qualified to do the work that they do. They're all intelligent, educated, professionals who have not only the expertise, but they also have the passion and the drive to actually help the community.
Yeah.
And I think that needs to be applauded and really recognized. So I'm really happy to be on board.
That's amazing. I wonder something that I think needs to be mentioned, because it seems to be a common conversation when I talk to folks from a lot of new countries that haven't had a lot of experience with ABA and are learning about ABA and being introduced to ABA, and one of the big barriers continues to be a lot of the anti-ABA discussion, and of course understanding SBA's mission to promote evidence-based practice. That can be a bit of a barrier. Have you run into that in the community with families and whatnot, and how's that been for you folks?
So in terms of like anti-ABA sentiment, I personally haven't come across that within the Somali population, but what I've come across is like not knowing what ABA is, like that lack of understanding of what it is, right? So that I haven't seen, but I don't know if the other girls have come across that anti-ABA sentiment. I haven't heard often, but it's more to do with what is the ABA anyways.
Yeah.
I've seen families, Somali families, and I think Suaad mentioned younger families,
Sure.
younger parents now accessing ABA or going out to do the research of what support is available for their children. But yeah, I've not really heard or seen of Somali family being anti-ABA, but you're being in the UK. There are many that are anti-ABA, whether that's in schools or of the sort, but not particularly the Somali community itself being really anti. I think the awareness needs to be there needs to be more awareness actually of the field and discipline.
For the families who have used ABA have seen how effective it is. Therapists and occupational therapists. It's usually, this sentiment usually comes from professionals who aren't directly affected. who have that
Yeah.
I've met have always been very supportive, because it's been like,
When I first connected with Rahma and Ikram, it was just the two of you, and it's quickly grown. I've learned about kind of how Suaad came into the picture. How about you and Nasteya? How did you kind of come to join this group, and where, how did that connection form?
oh, I was fangirling over Rahma when she passed her BCVA. She came on my my LinkedIn, and I immediately followed her. Or did I connect with you? I can't remember. Are you too famous to be followed?
No, yeah, no way.
So yeah, I
No.
followed her, and then you came across my dance account, right? Because I teach a traditional Somali art form called Buralle. And I've actually opened the studio up to young Somali girls who are autistic, have neurodivergent needs. Props to me. And I use ABA to teach the dance. It's a really complex, beautiful dance that includes a lot of jumping and using many different parts of your body. And I've used ABA to essentially teach it. And Rahma came to one of my classes, really enjoyed it. 3 hours of dancing. And after a good sweaty 3-hour session, you suggested I should come along, right? Or did I say, please, can I join?
Absolutely.
I love what you guys are doing.
Yeah, it was something of the sort. I think I came to your class after we connected, and perhaps you were in the verge of joining in, but I did want to add to her classes that while she was teaching, I could pick up on the behavioral techniques you were using. I was like, oh, she's doing this and doing this. So I went back to your break and I said, I know what you're doing.
Right at the beginning of my class, I think I looked at you and said this. I said, guys, I just want a baseline where everyone's at. And then I looked at her and we looked at each other. And so you see, ABA is just for autism. It can also be.
We also know.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we also both know of a known colleague together as well. So colleague that I worked with and you worked with as well. So that's maybe how we connected as well. Because I think she told me about you and I was like, oh, great. I looked up to you.
And it was just after I graduated as well. So yeah, that's how we connected. And then I said I'd be honored to join and support.
Can you just repeat again what the name of that dance style is?
It's so the art form is called Burambur. It's poetry paired with dance. It's the most unique on earth. Women have been performing it for over 1,000 years. So it's usually an older woman who writes the poetry. It's fascinating. And then another woman jumps into a circle of women and embodies the words essentially. And so I teach the jumping part of it.
And tell me a little bit more about what that experience has been like for some of these autistic participants.
A lot of the time, I don't go straight into. I mean, first of all, a lot of the attendees are high masking, and I only find out in the middle of the session when I mention that I practice ABA or I'm in this field or that this is a space that's open for all. Because a lot of the class is just about letting go of the idea of perception and just being completely free. That's when people usually and they start talking. People usually say, "Oh, well, I'm autistic or whatever." I'm really glad that this space exists. But for what I tend to do for those who aren't so high masking is I make the classes a lot smaller, so no more than say 3 to 4. Usually the people who are bringing some of these individuals along let me know in advance. I have like a phone conversation and prepare the studio in terms of like even temperature, or am I going to be using the drum on that day, or is it better that this person is just one-to-one with me? So it's literally same thing that I do with the programs I work on. It's highly individualized, so it quite literally depends. I think in one of the sessions I had to beat the drum in a way that isn't so loud, because the drum is very, very, very loud. You have to really, you ladies have heard it before, but with a class that I've taught recently with 3 young ladies, but between the ages of 16 to 21, I had to beat the drum with my hand and make it quite as low as possible, because they found it overstimulating. So yeah,
it's really cool. And you're involved in kind of partnerships as well. Tell me a little bit about what role partnerships are playing or will play in SBAA's work.
I mean, it's essential if we want this to be something that is sustainable, if we want the trust from the community, if we want the community globally to gain as much access as possible to this field that has been so life-changing for so many people for so many decades. We need to work with each other as much as possible. There's a Somali saying that says, "Farfol madaqta," which is a finger doesn't wash an entire face. The partnership is crucial. The three of us or whoever else joins this team can't do anything alone. We have to work with media personalities. We have to work with other people within the profession and outside of the profession so that we can meet the needs of the people whose needs need to be met.
And what kinds of partnerships feel most meaningful or promising right now?
Can I say, Ikram?
Yeah, you can. Yes,
we
you can.
have contacted a young man who actually started speaking at the age of 10, who's now an independent, wonderful young man who started an organization called Dodan, which basically means advocate or self-advocate. It's an advocacy organization which hopes to basically raise awareness about neurodiversity within Somalia, get parents out of their houses. There is a lot of stigma. As much as we say that we are a loving and caring community, conflict that has gone on for so long has really affected us, and people are prioritizing what they eat and like the primary needs of a human. And so there are parents who, you know, if they have 6 children and one of them is neurodiverse and has a lot of needs, they'll say we have 5. And that child is locked away for a long, long time. So he wants to erase that stigma, and he's collaborating with artists back home and holding events where parents can bring their children out of the house and bring the kids together and the parents together to kind of just show, look how magical, how amazing your children are. And he's within policy and government, and we communicated with him and we said, we'd love to be, we're not here to tell you what to do. We want to work with you and join in on the effort. So right now, the aim back home in Mogadishu is just raising awareness about evidence-based care. As the country's healing, there are a lot of new therapies arising, and people are starting to notice there's quite a bit of money to be made. So he actually gave me this example himself. He said, I'm quite concerned. Recently, someone opened up a center, the parents were told to come and attend, and the parents were in one room for a couple of hours, the children were in another room, and we don't know what's going on, we don't know what they're doing, we don't really quite understand. So we said the ultimate goal of SBAA is to start a master's program, an ABA master's program back home in collaboration with universities outside of the country, and to essentially build, what was the word that I was using, Ikram? Capacity within our own country, so we're not constantly outsourcing. I'm a Somali and I love this field, but I cannot go to Somalia and become a BCBA there because I don't have the lived experience. So the ultimate goal is to essentially create our own BCBAs back home that can produce research, that can work with the local community, and then we can collaborate with them from wherever we are. But for now, it's awareness. Like this year specifically, it's awareness about evidence-based care and collaboration.
Yeah, so to what Nasteya was saying towards the end of SBA having so we already have, I mean, as professionals, they work through evidence-based practice. But also, I think as Somalis, the very unique thing that we can do is kind of incorporate the cultural practices that we have in the community, and we can integrate that into the practice. Into the SBA practice. So what you said about the Bromville, we can also resurface other Somali female-led cultural practices, and we can use them as tools to help individuals in develop their social skills and to really kind of be part of the community. So I mean, I think I'm trying to like really emphasize of what the work that we do. It's only one of the reasons we can do it is because it's Somalis working for other Somalis. You know, we have the insight of our cultural practices and the positives, you know, the positives of those kind of experiences, and we can develop them to actually be tools to help, you know, individuals who are on the spectrum. I just wanted to emphasize that because I think that's what's really unique, that we already have those practices of expression, of movement, of being part of the community, and we're really trying to resurface that. And not only showcase the importance of the practices that we have, but also kind of like modernize it a bit, and kind of layer it with the clinical knowledge that these ladies have. So I think I was trying to highlight that. Sorry, I just wanted to share that before anybody else wanted to move on.
Yeah, that's fine. I just wanted to add, going back to what Nasteya said about the having future Somali behavior analysts based in Somalia itself. As we all know, BACB has not now made it international. So as they left and we can't gain their credentials, we're very excited to be representing Somalia and Somaliland with the IBAO. And we've been talking to Dr. Muder and just thinking about how to get those credentials based in Somalia itself. So that's exciting as well. I'm sure you were going to mention this as well.
Yeah. Really cool. Really cool. And Ikram, did you have something you were going to add too?
Yeah, I was just going to add that point that we've joined the professional advisory board. So hopefully, with that, having that organization supporting us, I think it's definitely possible for us to maybe start, even just coursework, just to start out, maybe just start with coursework, for example, for the IBT, and then see where we can kind of go from there. But definitely building capacity within the country. I think it's really important that we try to, build up the knowledge structures in the community, the educational structures, and not just assume that just because we share an ethnicity that we'll be able to solve all the problems, which is not what we want to do. Like, we don't want to be the only organization out there supporting Somalis within this space. We want other people to join as well. So I think that's also important to state.
Right on, right on. In addition to all the good work you're doing to disseminate and work with Somali families and Somali professionals, I know there are a lot of folks listening that may have Somali families on their caseload and aren't Somali themselves, and are looking for support or resources. Is the SBAA a good place for those folks to connect with as well?
Absolutely. Sorry, can you hear me? So we had a few non-Somali ABA professionals approach us via email, and we had spoken with them at length. That also directed us and made Ikram and I create a culturally informed guide as well that we have then dispensed out to everyone that may need this particular guide to best understand the Somali culture, how to best approach their Somali clients.
Cool.
And I think it gained a few more followers and a few more support, and we're very, very grateful for that. We've got really good connections in LinkedIn and Instagram. So of the non-Somali ABA professionals that approached us, most of them based in the US, I would say, but US, Canada as well. And that leads to the culturally responsive behavior analysis that we do want to promote, and we definitely want to welcome the non-Somali ABA professionals or even other professionals that would like to understand the Somali culture and how to best support and cater those.
I love that. And is that something that we might be able to link to for folks in the show notes so they can access that?
100%. Yeah, that would be great. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. You can find a lot of our material on our link tree. So definitely we'll be able to share that at the end with you so you can post that.
Yeah.
Nice. So we've talked about, I think we've talked a bit about some of the goals for the future. Creating a master's program in Somalia would be wonderful, and developing a membership structure. What are some of your other kind of long-term kind of hopes for SBAA over the next few years?
Yeah, so I'll just share one more other thing that is upcoming as well. So we are starting a newsletter that will be coming out in February. So that will be our first issue. And then we hope to do that quarterly. So we'll have 4. That's one thing everything that's coming up. We definitely started a TikTok page, so follow us, guys. SBAA official. And hopefully you'll be able to share all of our social media.
All
We
of
are
it will
on
be there for sure.
Perfect. So Instagram, we're on LinkedIn, and then also hopefully we'll be starting a podcast of our own as well. And maybe we'll have you, Ben. Will you join?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
I'd love to.
Okay. So we'll do that. Hopefully that's towards the end of the year. But long-term picture obviously is to be a hub for behavior analysis within the Somali community. And like you said, not only for Somali families and their loved ones, for Somali practitioners, for non-Somali practitioners as well. I think it's really important that, if they have questions and they need support, for example, dealing with a Somali family and want a better understanding, they could come to us. Hopefully, we can provide also translation services in translating behavior analytic material. I know that's something that with the IBAO, they are translating exams into different languages.
Yes.
Hopefully, maybe that's something that we can do as well and provide that exam in Somali. So that's something, that I think that hopefully that we'll be able to do as well. I don't know if Rahma, if you'd like to share something else regarding our long-term plans.
I think, Ikram, you've summed it all up, I think. Yeah.
Great. So if Somali families or allies are listening today, what would you want them to take away from this conversation?
Great.
We would want
Yeah, go for it, Rahma.
We'd welcome them. We'd want them to be part of SBAA. I would want them to support, follow us, and definitely reach out to us. I love the word Ikram mentioned, a hub, and I think that to be really crucial. A hub not just for the Somali community and the families, but the non-Somali professionals who want to understand the Somali. So just bridging that gap, a way where individuals can come and ask for support. Let's say if they go through diagnosis and they're very early on at that stage, what sort of support can we give them? Steph and I, having experience based in the UK, we can support with specific or give advice or even give particular referrals should they need some. We're more than happy to do that.
Right on.
The one thing I want to add is that I want, Somali students to understand that this is an amazing science, behavior analysis, okay? It's something that you can, have a future in. You can get a great job. You can change lives. So, it's something that we also want to promote as well. Like, hey, this is a career that you can, you can do. Like, I know it's not like a really popular career within our community, but I definitely think it's growing. I want to invite our male Somalis to join as well because we need them. We need their voices and, their experience as well. I know as behavior analysis, it is a female dominated field, right? It's not just unique to Somalis, but I definitely want to encourage Somali males that this is also an amazing field to join as well. And we want to be a part of your journey. If you are a student and you're thinking about it, definitely, reach out to any of us. We'll share obviously our email as well. You can always email us, message us on Instagram or other platforms and just ask questions. We're here to respond to any questions from non-Somali practitioners, from Somali practitioners as well. So like I said earlier, we want to be a hub. So when people think behavior analysis Somali, they think of SBAA.
Amazing. Is there anything else that we haven't covered that feels important to name before we close up today?
I also wanted to say how this space is not just about professional expertise that the practice that these ladies do, but I would also say it's about valuing lived experience and really utilizing the cultural insight that we have alongside the professional work that that the rest of the team have, and also I really as an individual, I kind of want to highlight late diagnosis, like later age diagnosis. So my own diagnosis at the age of 45 really highlighted how many people, in the Somali community navigate neurodivergence without language or support, often for a lifetime. And I think that really needs to be talked about as well. So we're hoping to also have some sort of peer-led support space for adults who are diagnosed in their later years.
Love that.
Thank
Really
you.
cool. Really cool. Thanks everybody for coming on and talking about the Somali Behaviour Analysis Association. Really excited to see what comes up in the next few months, in the next 2 years. Really cool to get to know y'all.
Thank you.
Thank
you for having us.
Thank you for having.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
The third secret word is family. Check out these episodes of Behavior Speak. Episode 198, The Evolution of Behavior Analysis in the UK, with Rahma Farah and Rochelle Gray. Episode 218, Behavior Analysis in Morocco, with Mina El Khali. And episode 232, Behavior Analysis in Sudan, with Salma Abdurrahman. You can find us on Instagram and TikTok, and subscribe to our YouTube page at Behavior Speak. And if you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify.